Hi, today we are going to review The Keeper of Happy Endings by Barbara Davis. And you chose this book specifically for us both to read. You said, you read this and we'll do a review on it. And I said, okay. So.
I did. The Keeper of Happy Endings was published by Lake Union Publishing. It's actually done extremely well in the short period of time that it's been out. That could have something to do with the fact that Lake Union Publishing is an Amazon imprint. Yes, Amazon are publishing books themselves now. I did look into the author, Barbara Davis, and I don't think we could call her an indie author though, because before she published with Lake Union, she published with Berkeley, which is an imprint of Penguin. So I chose this book for us to read because I wanted to see if there was any kind of generational difference in our responses to the book, or whether the book would actually sort of, cover all ages. And because I know that Rose generally likes to read fantasy and so forth.
So I have here the blurb, which is going to explain what it's about much better than my ad-libbing would ever do. And the first words in here are a French name of one of the main characters, which I absolutely do not know how to pronounce, so that's my disclaimer. So Soline Roussel is well schooled in the business of happy endings. For generations, her family has kept an exclusive bridal salon in Paris, where magic is worked with needle and thread. It is said that the bride who wears a Roussel gown is guaranteed a lifetime of joy. But devastating losses during World War II leave Soline's world and heart in ruins and her faith in love shaken. She boxes up her memories, stowing them away, along with her broken dreams, determined to forget. Decades later, while coping with her own tragic loss, aspiring gallery owner Rory Grant leases Soline's old property and discovers a box containing letters and a vintage wedding dress, never worn. When Rory returns the mementos, an unlikely friendship develops and eerie parallels in Rory and Soline's lives begin to surface. It's clear that they were destined to meet, and that Rory may hold the key to righting a 40-year wrong and opening the door to shared healing and perhaps a little magic.
A little magic.
What that didn't say is it jumps between time periods and countries. So there's some, we follow Soline's story throughout, which is sort of interspersed with Rory's story, and this kind of becomes mixed up as Soline begins to tell a bit of her story to Rory. And we jump between France and America and between wartime and
modern times.
Modern time, but the modern time in this book is the 80s. So.
Yeah, so it's a dual timeline structure. So, your general impressions. Like it? Not like it?
I liked it. It's definitely not the kind of book I would choose to read myself. Or think that I would enjoy. I did find it very emotional.
Yeah, it was pretty heart-wrenching in places.
Pretty heart-wrenching and quite intense. It's a lot about lost loves and reuniting with lost loves and lost loves being dead and families and generations and finding relatives that you didn't think you had and all kinds of that sort of stuff. But, I did like that there was a little touch of magic in there, in that they could sort of sew their they sew happy endings into the wedding gowns.
Yeah, they sewed charms into the hems of the wedding gowns.
Yeah, so I did like that was a nice. But yeah, it was a really nice little story.
Yeah, well, I mean, anything set in World War II.
I think I did cry, actually. I did shed a tear or two, which I don't usually do because I don't read that kind of book.
No, I mean, I did as well. Yeah. The thing is that you can't really write about Paris in the war years when they're being, under the Nazis' rule, without it being pretty gut-wrenching. Yeah. And it should be. This sort of level of feeling of understanding what it was like for people in that period of time, have you come across this before?
No, not in a book. There's movies. There's definitely movies that are about it.
Like the boy in the striped pajamas and that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I mean, I think it's important that we remember those sort of times, because if you don't remember how awful war is, you might just run headlong into another one, which would be terrible. Yeah. Anything you really liked about it, like in particular, or anything you didn't like?
Won't spoil it, but there was a reveal,
surprise
at the end, which I kind of was like, you know, probably a third into the book, I was like, well, this is obviously this.
Yeah.
And I already kind of knew, so I was just waiting for the main characters
yeah.
to realize it.
Yeah.
So there was that, like, there was a little bit of an element of predictability, and that, you know, there was this whole feeling of fate and all of this, and then at the end it's like, oh yeah, well, this is why, and it's like, well, of course. But I think that might just be because I read so much fantasy and I expect that kind of thing to happen. So I don't know, like, you probably would have.
I had that as well, but there were still surprises.
Yeah, there were definitely some surprises.
Like, I didn't expect.
And it was one of those books where I didn't know if it, because it's one of those sort of European books where it might not have a happy ending. So I was really glad when it did have a happy ending. So I really liked that it had a happy ending, especially because the other thing I wanted to say was I was doing a lot of this reading while my partner was doing really late nights at work, so he wasn't coming home until like midnight, so I was there alone in my home reading about lost lovers and men gone to war, and you know, my partner's miles away working really late, and I have to go to sleep without him next to me, and you know, so it was very it was particularly poignant at the time that I was reading it.
Well, I mean, what happens in your life at the time really does affect how you feel about a particular book. Yeah, I don't think there was anything I didn't like. I don't mind knowing, sort of having a sense of something that might happen. I don't mind that.
It's hard to avoid having that.
Yeah, well, you foreshadow things when you write a book, so it doesn't necessarily mean it's predictable, because the story overall is not predictable.
No,
it has this sort of setup where you can kind of you sort of figure that might happen, but you're never quite sure whether actually it will, and you know, it's sort of. And really, it's like with, you know, in a romance novel, you know there's going to be a happy ending because it's romance, but it's how it gets there.
Yeah,
that's the big thing.
It's all about the journey.
So yeah, I enjoyed it as well. And I think what I really enjoyed about it was the writing and some of the wisdom in it. You know, I like a bit of depth in my books, and so I'm just going to read you.
Yeah, it was certainly very deep compared to the previous book that I'd read, which we were talking about in another video.
Yes, deep and beautifully written. I mean, her prose is wonderful. It's all credit to her. So I'm just going to read you this. This is something that Celine says to Rory. We're all a collection of our stories, Sherry, our joys and sorrows, our loves and losses. That is who we are, a tally of all our agonies and ecstasies. Sometimes the agonies leave a mark like a bruise on the soul. We do our best to hide them from the world and from ourselves too, because we're afraid of being fragile, of being damaged. Nice, huh? This is also Celine, because I mean, Celine's the older character with all the wisdom.
Yeah, Celine's the one with the French one with the wisdom, of course.
Yeah, she went through a lot.
She did. But I've come to believe we create our own curses and carry them through life because we've been told it's our lot. We're taught to relive our mother's heartaches, to accept their sufferings as our own and pass them on to the next generation, again and again, until one of us, at long last, says no and the curse is finally broken. Because we've discovered a new kind of magic, the kind that comes with choosing for ourselves, with saying, I will do something else, be something else, have something else. This was the lesson Maman was trying to teach me the night she slipped away. There are no curses, only patterns meant to be broken, dreams to chase, hearts to hold, magic to make. Yeah, that's a very strong one, because there's a lot of there's 3 generations in this story basically, and I know certainly my peers, part of our process of growing up and becoming adults has been acknowledging what things our mothers have passed to us and what things we are consciously trying to not take onto ourselves from our mothers.
Yeah, and it's part of the process, I think, for every generation. Yeah. So, okay, so we both like it. That's great. Would you read more of that kind of thing, do you think, now that you've read one?
What do you mean, that kind of thing?
I'd call it literary fiction in its most general terms, like historical or not. I mean, literary fiction is generally considered to be moving and beautifully written. So, would it? Yeah? Moving
and beautifully written. Although I don't like things that are too... This was probably on the edge of, like, too upsetting. I do like things to be, you know, I read for entertainment, so I like the happy feelings, not the, oh God, tragedy feelings.
Yeah. No, I'm like that too.
And also, like, thrillers.
Yeah. horror.
exhausting.
No way out. Yeah. And it is on the edge, I think, for that. When I chose it, I looked at some of the reviews and people said it's uplifting.
Yeah.
Like, despite, you know, the fact that it's a tearjerker, it is uplifting. There is always hope there, and it is a very wonderful ending.
It is beautifully done. It's well, you know, the story is woven.
Yes, and the light is in the prose, because the way the characters see the world is beautiful. So there's that, you know, and for someone like me, you know, just loves beautiful prose, I just enjoy every sentence, you know. So that really helps. So what creates the tension in this book? What keeps the reader reading? Because that's the role of the antagonist. If it was fantasy, we would just say, okay, who's the antagonist? And it would be like, okay, well, the bad guy, obviously. Here, in these kind of books, it's
more, I mean,
it's a bunch of things.
I come from the film world, so it's what you would call a character drama, I guess. So it's more focusing on the interpersonal relationships between the three main women. It's Rory, her mother, and then Solene. The chapters end right at the point in Solene's story where you're like, what happens next though? I want to know what happened back in the wartime, and then you go somewhere else for a bit.
But I think the main thing that keeps you reading over and above that is the mystery.
It's unfolding Solene's story.
Yeah. And so you know where she comes from, you know where she ends up, so you want to know how she gets there. Yeah. So that is an element of mystery.
How would you rate it out of 5?
Me? Oh, for me it's 5 out of 5.
Okay.
But it's just my kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
But I can't fault it on a technical basis either, on a craftsmanship, you know, because there's, whether you liked it or not is one thing, and then whether it's well crafted or not is something else. So my rating would be both of those together. Yeah. And so for me it's 5.
Right. Yeah, well, I'm pretty generous with my stars anyway, so I would also give it a 5, because I definitely finished the book and was left with that feeling of like, wow, that was great. Yeah, just like, wow, that was really well done. Like, I don't know how she did it, but it was amazingly done. Because I don't have the level of, you know, technical knowledge and expertise that you do, so I'm just sort of left at the end of the book going, oh, I have this really great happy feeling and that was really well done, but I don't know why. But I'll just sit with it and enjoy that I just read a good book. Great. So that's it for us today. If you enjoyed this review, don't forget to watch some more, and do like it and share it about. We'll catch you next time.